Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Aranza Zugalan and I'm a member of the Build Up editorial team. Build Up is Europe's largest international portal for energy efficiency and renewable energy in buildings. It is a unique community that provides the opportunity to discuss, contribute, and collaborate with other experts in this field. Build Up aims to bring together stakeholders working in the building and construction sector to reap the collective intelligence about energy reduction in buildings by encouraging knowledge change. Our editorial work is organized around a topic of the month, which allows us to dig deeper into specific themes. Each month, several items are produced by Build Up, such as overview and technical articles and written interviews, but that's not all. Build Up also offers the opportunity to host webinars on topics related to energy efficiency and renewable energy in buildings. More recently, Build Up has opened its doors to distinguished experts in the field to share their knowledge in front of our cameras in our Build Up expert talks. The Build Up portal shares daily the most relevant events in the field, but we also participate actively in many European events around the year, such as EPV Center and REHVA conferences, Horizon 2020, Interreg, and Cost Action events, Covenant of Mayors, and more, always with the aim of further disseminating the results and helping to create high-quality media content. The Build Up portal is updated daily, reaching around 120 new items each month, including news, events, publications, articles, and video content. But Build Up is not only us. Build Up is a community, and we invite you to be part of it. By becoming a member, you can contribute by uploading your own content and promoting your project news, events, case studies, reports, and more. By contributing content, Build Up will help you to reach a broader audience through our online portal, our social media channels, and our monthly newsletter. Visit us in our brand new portal in build-up.ec.europa.eu to find out more. It is a pleasure for Build Up to host today's webinar entitled The Clean Energy Transition for Buildings, Professional Associations Enhancing Renovation Skills, brought to you by Build Up in collaboration with the Federation of European Heating, Ventilation and Air Conditioning Association, REHVA, the European Builders Association, EBC, GCP Europe, Renovate Europe, and EuropeOn. Today's agenda is divided into two parts. The first part consists of a series of presentations. We have had a small change in agenda, so we will begin with a welcome from Alice Corovessi, Managing Director of INZEB, the Greek national partner of Renovate Europe and Vice-Chair of Renovate Europe. This will be followed by a presentation on skills for building decarbonization from Silvia Resesi, Policy Officer at DG Ener B3, Andras Toth, Policy Officer at DG Climate E1, will then present guidance on the climate resilience of buildings. Following Andras, Amandine de Coster-Lacourt, Project Advisor at CINEA D13, will present the Build Up Skills Initiative. To round off the first part of the session, Dragomir Zanev, Executive Director of INEFECT, will present the Bulgarian Build Up Skills Road Mapping. In the part 2 of the agenda will be a panel discussion with experts moderated by Alice Corovessi, Managing Director of INZEB, the Greek national partner of Renovate Europe and Vice-Chair of Renovate Europe. The panel consists of all the speakers who have already presented and that are still connected, in addition to Fernando Sigchos Jiménez, Secretary General of EBC, and Pär Lundström, Senior Skills and Policy Advisor at GCP Europe, EuropeOn. Fernando and Paul will start with an opening statement of 5 minutes before we open the floor to all speakers for questions. We will then round off today's session with some closing remarks from Fernando Sigchos Jiménez, Secretary General of EBC. From Build Up, we invite you and encourage the audience to send us questions through the GoToWebinar platform that can be answered during the panel discussion. Please specify if your question is for a specific speaker or if it's for all speakers to answer. You will be able to find the webinar recording on the Build Up portal and our YouTube channel in the coming days, together with the presentation slides. Now we will move directly to our first speakers and moderators of today's panels, Alice Corovessi, Managing Director of INZEB. Alice, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for organizing this event, and of course thank you for having me here as the moderator of the panel discussion, but also doing the welcome on behalf of Andrei Litiu because of his absence. I want to apologize to everyone because we are facing a technical problem with my camera. Unfortunately, it's not collaborating. Something with my skills, probably the technical skills. In any case, I think that we will solve it during the event, and hopefully by the end of this meeting and this webinar, we will be able to open my camera. So I consider this topic that we are going to discuss today an important one, and this is an important not only for Greece because I'm working on the skills sector, so I accepted this invitation with pleasure, but I know that this is a huge topic for all member states. The demand for renovating the building stock at EU level is high, it's getting higher, and in order to address both the technical and the social aspects of renovation, and of course the benefits that are coming from building renovation, but also from the construction in general of buildings, is something that needs to be high in the agenda of the member states. We are celebrating the years of skills 2023, and I think that this discussion today will provide a lot of food for thought for all the people that are attending. That's why I'm also inviting them to post the questions to discuss them during this event and specifically during the panel discussion. What is important for this year, but also the coming years in order to reach the climate neutrality by 2050, as the vision of the European Commission is, but also the vision of the member states, is that we need to promote the investments in training and to promote also the investments in upskilling. And this is why, and this is because with this way we can enable people to stay in the jobs or find new ones, and probably boosting the reskilling and upskilling sector. Probably it's a response, let's say, to some medium or high unemployment rates that the member states are facing. On the other hand, and considering all the changes and the developments and the new demands for the building status in terms of energy, well-being, efficiency in general, with this way we ensure that skills match the needs of the employers, and actually this way we are promoting also the close collaboration between the social partners, the companies, the policy makers, and those bodies that take decisions that are related to the skills. And of course, it's very important with an advanced skills framework, both at national but at EU level, to attract also people from outside the EU to commit, but also to engage in the works that are needed in the coming years in order to address and to manage to have the vision realized. I mean, the vision of carbon neutrality. For me, I'm looking forward to the discussion. I know that we have an excellent lineup of speakers, both coming from the policy sector, from various DGs, but also we have an excellent, to my opinion, example from Bulgaria, from a good friend, a collaborator by Dragomir Tsanev, but also I'm looking forward to the discussion and the insights that all speakers will share after the first interventions. From my side, I want to welcome you all, and I'm looking forward to a fruitful and demanding at the same time discussion. Thank you. I think we need to give the floor to Silvia Rezesi, the policy officer from DGNR. So Silvia, the floor is yours.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation. I'm sorry I have to take this meeting, unfortunately, by my phone, and not due to lack of skills, but due to IT and digital limitations and corporate restrictions. So I'm a bit, I'm not even sure that my camera is on, so it's a bit let's say, blindly. Nevertheless, so I don't see, for instance, the chat function, but okay, these are things that we have to take and deal with as they come. In any case, I've not prepared slides because I see this as a very good opportunity to exchange in a structured but let's say more relaxed manner. So really without a formal presentation. And what I wanted to maybe spend a few moments on as introduction is really to emphasize the extent to which skills are a horizontal and cross-policy priority, and also to put an emphasis on cross-trades that are really important in the context of skills for clean energy transition. Now, I work in the European Commission in DG Energy in the unit dealing with buildings and products, so the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, but also eco-design and energy labeling regulations. So traditionally, skills have not been, let's say, in the very center of our work. Traditionally, we have spent much more time in our impact assessments looking into the job impacts of our legislative proposals, without necessarily so much looking into whether there are people with insufficient numbers and with the sufficient and with the correct skill sets to enter into those jobs. So that's a little bit the starting point, along with the fact that the gap in green skills in general, be it in the construction sector, be it more on the contractors, installers, broadly on the engineering side sector, has been acknowledged now for some years. For instance, the scenario put by CEDEFOP highlights that by 2030, the construction sector would need to provide training for 4 million and more workers. And this was a scenario that was done in 2020, I believe. So this is by far, certainly by now, a gross underestimate. We are aware that the construction sector, but also, as I said, one of our flagship initiatives now is working on a action plan to promote the rollout of heat pumps. So there we have the same, one of the main elements is promoting skills. So we are aware that broadly, the clean energy transition sector is facing labor shortages, and we are also aware what are the range of factors that underpin those, including workforce aging, in many cases poor working conditions, and also more broadly the lack of workers having the specific skill sets to respond to the needs generated by the green transition, such as and this is a little bit, I would like to open a bracket if you want here. This is also underpinned by the fact that the skill set is a dynamically growing variable, if you want. We need specialists now in complex energy systems, in deep building renovation, installers of advanced technological solutions, building information modeling managers. So this is really a very broad range of skills. Now, but the fact that we are dealing here with a broad range of skills is, I mean, it is a challenge and an opportunity, because finally, at the end of the day, the availability of skilled workers and professionals and experts is at the core of the clean energy transition, and actually is one of the points that would define whether and to what extent we succeed in delivering on our increased REPower EU ambitions in terms of increased target for renewable energy, the energy efficiency target, but also the other policy elements in the REPower EU, including the EU solar strategy, the accelerated deployment rate of heat pumps, and so on. So we have been talking with, I mean, we are in a continuous dialogue with stakeholders, but more recently on the side of skills, we have heard estimates from industry that the solar heating and cooling sector alone will require an additional 130,000 skilled workforce, that about 400 to 500,000 workers will need to be trained and upskilled in the heat pump value chain, which is an increase of the number of installers of more than 50%, and a need for more than 50% of today's existing installers to be reskilled. So we are having here a quantity and a quality problem at the same time. Now, of course, this is a little bit taking stock, and I'm happy then to take part into the discussion later on. But to emphasize also that the REPower EU plan announces support to skills initiatives through the Erasmus Plus program, through the joint undertaking on clean hydrogen, in view of launching a large project to develop skills from the hydrogen economy. More recently, also we have commitments in the Net Zero Industry Act in terms of taking forward net zero industry academies. On this ground, also in the heat pump action plan, we are now at the stage of scoping how to put forward operationally a skills partnership to in a very agile and operational manner to help the sector deliver the let's say revolutionary increase almost in heat pump rollout. So more strategically, what I see is that we need your support, the support of associations like yours, in fostering a multidimensional approach to skills deployment, because there is more than enough that should be done by public authorities at national, regional, local level to structure the deployment of the deployment of skills, the deployment of training, including vocational and educational training, targeted training, educational programs, in capturing what is available also at EU level in terms of financial support for such targeted training and educational programs. And there are funds through the that are programmed at member state level through the European Social Fund Plus, through through Just Transition. There is also, when it comes to local, to public authorities, there are possibilities under the technical support instrument. There are funding possibilities under Life Clean Energy Transition, and I know a colleague will shortly speak about this, but we do need really the concerted effort of public authorities at national, regional, and local level, together with you, to put forward those targeted training and educational programs. And we also need the commitment and the commitment of industry stakeholders, and I do believe that there are already there are many fantastic initiatives that are already taking place on the side of promoted by the industry itself, stepping up their efforts and investment in the development of the skills required by the energy transition. and in strengthening their reskilling and upskilling programs by investing more in education and training and in actions to match job offer and demand. But more than anything today, I really hope that the discussion will revolve around operational conclusions. What is necessary to, well, first to understand the precise forecast of what types of skills are needed and in which occupation sectors, regions, because this is that continuous and dynamic monitoring in view of ensuring that all hands are on deck, all actors do their part, is fundamental in view of establishing, for instance, appropriate curricula for education or for initial and continuous vocational training. Also, in what operationally, how to engage with governments to adapt the broader education and training measures in cooperation with stakeholders from sectoral policies, in particular from the energy sector, including, needless to say, sectoral social partners who also have their role to play in designing, training, and retraining materials that will help close the gap. Of course, here I'm sure that the discussion will evolve also around ways to support training and in particular to support on-the-job training and learning. And last but not least, by all means, I believe that part of the equation can be solved through improving working conditions. This is a maybe, well, this is a promising route, maybe the first and foremost step that is necessary, because even before we start talking about labor mobility and those, because at the end of the day, we need more people. To get more people with the right qualifications, we need to make them want to join the clean energy transition, and I do believe that that stakeholders like yours have their role to play to make this sector more attractive to young people, to women, and in general to broaden the catchment area, if you want, for skilled workers. And that is all that I was planning to say at this stage. Sorry, I don't see the chat box or.
Yes, there are no questions for the moment, Sylvia, but we are going to collect the questions and we will discuss them during the panel discussion. So please stay with us if it is possible.
Yes, absolutely. It is possible. And again, apologies. I'm not even sure whether I think on my application I can't turn on the camera somehow.
Great. So thank you, Sylvia, and thank you for being also on time, and you kept the timetable. What I'm keeping from your intervention is that there is a challenge and an opportunity ahead us to reskill, upskill the workforce, but not only the workforce, to my opinion, but also the white collars as well, because the demands for the new trends for buildings are definitely quite high. So we need to examine the whole ecosystem that is working in the building sector. So I'm keeping the challenge and opportunity. I have a question from my side for you, but also for your other colleagues from the other DGs, but let's discuss it during the panel discussion. So thank you again, Sylvia. And now I would like to give the floor to András Toth, Policy Officer from DG Klima. The title of his presentation is actually Guidance on the Climate Resilience of Buildings. So András, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you well, and I hope, and hopefully, yes, everybody can hear you well. Yes.
Excellent. So just I'm going to dive into this presentation, but first I would like to introduce myself. So I work in the Directorate General Climate Action of the European Commission, and in a specific unit dealing with climate adaptation. You may be asking why are we talking about this right now in a webinar devoted to skills for just transition in the clean transition in the building sector. And I think that we simply cannot dissociate dealing with the impacts of the changing climate from fighting preventing these impacts from happening. So climate adaptation and climate mitigation have to go hand in hand, because whatever optimistic climate mitigation scenario we take, unfortunately, the hazards that we already see striking the world around us, the climate hazards will increase considerably with time. And the worse it becomes as the more pessimistic scenarios we consider. So I'm trying to move the slides, but it does not seem to work. Okay, so sorry, could you go back one slide, because I think we moved on too much. I think the presentation is reacting a bit too slowly to my clicks. So yeah, thank you very much. One more slide, please. Could we go back one more slide, please? Yeah, and one more, because apparently it reacted to every single click I tried to make. And yeah, go back a bit more. Yeah, one more. Yeah, thank you. So I will stop. Yeah, and now ahead. Apparently, this is also reacting slowly to the person who is managing it now. So sorry for this technical problem. So yes, could we move one slide on now?
You can use your arrow keys on your keyboard to go forward and backwards. Maybe that's easier.
Okay, I'll try to do it. But it didn't seem to react fast enough. So now I clicked it once, and it doesn't seem to be moving. Maybe I need to click on down.
Okay, I'll do it for you. So next slide.
Okay, please do it for me. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so what we're trying to do with this guidance is that we are trying to in the current policy context of the European Green Deal, we are trying to make sure that all the actions related to buildings, which are our first line of defense against climate change, are actually appropriately addressing also the possible impacts of the changing climate. So now finally we see the slide. So this policy context is rather complex. It starts with the European climate law, with the European Green Deal at a higher level, but also going down to the more sector-specific strategic level, the renovation wave or the EU climate adaptation strategy. But it also concerns specific legislative initiatives, such as the revision of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive and of the Construction Products Regulation, where actually in the Commission proposals that were made for these revisions in the past years, we already introduced proposals that the impacts of the changing climate should be taken into account by the member states who are doing renovations of existing buildings or new buildings. So in the laws that are implementing the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, they should reflect this obligation. And also for the Construction Products Regulation, that the construction materials that are out there should contain sufficient information on how these products will perform under the changing climate. So we see that there is a lot. We are creating a demand at the policy level for knowledge related to how to make buildings climate resilient, and we noticed that there was insufficient available material that would be at EU level and accepted by the players in the construction sector to allow for this mainstreaming of climate resilience into construction. So can we move one slide, please? The reason for us to create this guidance was that we wanted to collect and synthesize existing methods, best practice, and also guidance for climate resilient buildings, and most of all to provide practical advice. And this is where I think we are linking into the topic of this webinar, which concerns the skills of the construction sector, because we are very much focusing currently on the skills necessary for the clean energy transition, for the renovation of buildings, but there may not be sufficient attention paid yet to making sure that the renovations and the new buildings that are currently being carried out are also withstanding the future impacts of climate. So it could be that if a building is not sufficiently prepared for that, all the investment that goes into the clean energy transition of that specific building is going to be wasted because of an extreme event happening in the future, or simply because the building is not suitable for handling the temperatures, the average temperatures in the summer in any given year within 20 years from now. Next slide, please. So this guidance was developed in a process of stakeholder consultation. So after a literature review, the consultants that we trusted with the development of the guidance created a first draft, and which went through stakeholder consultation with the final technical guidance being published in March 2023. Next slide, please. More about the stakeholder consultation. Not only was there a general stakeholder consultation, but we also convened 2 expert workshops and an expert panel, which was more or less stable in its membership, followed the development of the process. Next slide, please. So the structure of the guidance is basically 3 main parts. It starts with a policy and standards review, a general review which will be of interest to policymakers and the standard writers. It has a already more practical part dealing with the risk assessment and rating review when it comes to seeing what are the problems with the specific building within the future climate. And then a best practice guidance covering the adaptation options available to that building. Next slide, please. So as I said, the guidance was made available in March 2023. It can be downloaded on the Climate Adapt platform, which is a general platform on best practice knowledge and useful information on climate adaptation maintained by the European Environment Agency. And it is made of 2 parts. So the first so-called technical guidance part is covering the first 2 chapters or 2 sections that I mentioned, and the best practice guidance with practical advice is in a separate document. Next slide, please. So the first part is as I mentioned, the standardization and environment European policy review for adaptation. Next slide, please. So it is looking at basically essentially those EU policies that were mentioned in the first slides, but also looking at in a more complex manner at the impact, synergies, and trade-offs with other EU policy initiatives, and also categorizing the different initiatives from the point of view of which are the construction sector actors that are the most interested in those specific EU instruments. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next part is rather technical, the climate resilience in structural design review. As many of you know, there is a a set of standards out there which cover the structural safety of construction products, construction in general, and which are the Euro codes, and also the national regulations that are and the national annexes that are built on Euro codes. So these already contain some provisions for the climate resilience in buildings, and this is the chapter that follows up that analyzes the already available provisions. I think please go to the next slide and then to the next slide. We don't need to spend too much time on this section. So skip this slide please too. And so the next slide is going to describe the chapter on the climate resilience, climate vulnerability and risk assessment methodology. So here we have already an overview of currently available vulnerability and risk assessment methodologies for buildings. This is the first step for understanding how a specific building can be exposed to future climate impacts. So it has a methodology, stepwise methodology, which takes into account the hazards, the exposure level to the hazards, the sensitivity of the hazard, which together define the vulnerability, which is also affected by the adaptive capacity of the asset examined, and from the impact and the likelihood of the occurrence of the impact, we get to the risk level, which allows us to conclude whether action is actually needed. Next slide, please. So in the next slide, you will find an attempt at creating a climate resilience rating methodology, which is one step further. So basically, after the actions have been taken by the building designers and the people working on the building in order to ensure that the climate resilience is improved. The consultants tried to develop a methodology to assess the improvement, the level of the improvement achieved. Unfortunately, in the meantime, you can move to the next slide, please. Unfortunately, in this they didn't get very far. So I think we shouldn't be looking for a directly implementable resilience rating approach. So if you think of something which would be like the energy label or the energy performance certificate for buildings, that is not yet available from this study. And then let's move to the last part of the study, which is the best practice guidance. I think this will be the most interesting part because it is developed as a separate document with a lot of design features presented already visually in the document itself. Next slide, please. In order to see which are the options for technical options to achieve the climate resilience of buildings. So for the guidance, this part of the guidance is split up according to priority hazards. Heat waves, storms, heavy precipitation, flooding, subsidence, and drought are the priority hazards for which technical options are looked at. But there is also a division of the chapters to allow for an approach by climatic zone in Europe. So you can, if you come from a particular macro region or the building you are working on is coming from a specific macro region, you can select that climatic zone or look for information for that climatic zone. Also, rather importantly, there is also an entry point by stakeholder group or building sector actors. There, I think those who are looking at improving the skills in the construction sector can find some entry points for the interested target groups to identify knowledge. Also, division by project stages, and then a presentation of case studies. Next slide, please. Next, yes, this is a sample of pages just to show the visuals, the kind of visuals that are included in the guidance. Next slide, please. So this one, as you can see, presents the responses to heat waves, technical options to heat waves. And at the end of the guidance, you can find categorization of solutions by priority hazard, but also by the actors in the construction sector, starting from the local authorities, investors, developers, engineers, architects, building users, and even owners. This allows them to identify where the useful information for them is located in the guidance. Next slide, please. And this is, I have reached the end of this presentation. Unfortunately, I cannot stay for the panel discussion at the end, but if you have any questions, I think the organizers can send direct questions to me and I will answer them by email afterwards. Thank you very much for your time, and sorry for being slightly over time due to the technical difficulties. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andras, for sharing all these interesting facts and what the guidance, the climate resilience of buildings, because it's an important aspect of that. I'm not seeing any question at the moment placed at the chat box, but as you said, whatever will be asked, it will be shared. We have one question, yes, and this is for you, Andras. What are the tools that are available to rate the climate resilience of a building that you have mentioned? So probably you need to elaborate a little bit more on the tools that you presented.
Yes, well, what I said is that the consultants who Ramboll, who came up with the report, attempted to create such a tool, but first of course they looked around whether there were any reliable tools already available, but they couldn't identify any tool which would have been universally applicable to all of the climate hazards out there and would have allowed for a horizontal rating of climate resilience across the board, across all the priority hazards for all types of buildings. And they tried to come up with a suggestion of how such a tool could be devised. So it's more or less an outline. They created some sample graphs showing how the resilience rating could be illustrated, but then as to the details of how the resilience rating could be what methodology could be applied to set the levels of that resilience, they are leaving that to further work. So I'm afraid that if someone is looking for a solution to a climate resilience rating from that study, they will find some initial ideas, but not much more than that. On the other aspects, the study is much more elaborate, especially the best practice guidance part.
Thank you so much for providing. Yes, well, there's one more question about the relation between the presentation you did with the Energy Efficiency Directive and the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, as well as the Net Zero Industry Act, both in terms of the technical challenges and the skills provision. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I first of all see a connection to the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, because this is really directed at buildings. And what I can see as a potential use of the guidance is that when the member states if the current proposal for the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive is adopted with the provision for member states to address the climate resilience of buildings when doing building renovations and new buildings on their territory. If they address this requirement, if they leave this requirement in the directive, then they will need to transpose it into the national legislation, and of course then probably start providing guidance on how or even setting rules on how this could be achieved in their national legislation and in their national policy making. And this guidance is also meant to feed into that process, to show what are the technical options available that the building sector can count on, and what are the priority hazards to start with that are affecting buildings in the different macro regions of Europe. So it's certainly not I would say a toolbox which would be directly transposable into a national level legislation or guidance per se, but it's meant to be feeding that process which will happen in the member states after the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive revision is adopted. So this is how I see the linkage to the acts that the question mentioned.
Thank you. I hope that the question has been answered. I mean, that the answer provided actually satisfied the person who asked the question. I don't see any other question, but as Andras said, if you have anything else, we can forward the questions to Andras and he can reply by mail. So thank you again for your intervention and for providing this presentation. And it's time to move to our next speaker, Amandine de Coster-Lacourt. She's a project advisor at CINEA, and she will present us the Build Up Skills initiative. Amandine, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Alice, and good afternoon to everyone. Very pleased to be with you today for this discussion. In the next couple of slides, I would like to briefly highlight some of the developments we have supported on the upskilling of building professionals, notably through the Build Up Skills initiative that we are running since 2011. And then I will also give a few highlights on funding opportunities, which you may find interesting. Maybe to start with a few words about our agency. So we are the Climate, Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency. We are Brussels-based organization supporting the European Commission in the implementation of the Green Deal. We do this through notably the implementation of funding programs, supporting beneficiaries, overseeing the implementation of projects, but of course as well feeding the results of these projects back to the policymakers, which is maybe the most important at the end of the day. We have a rather large portfolio of projects, which should reach a bit more than 4,500 projects by the end of the current programming period. As far as the programs that we manage are concerned, you can see them listed here on this slide. I have highlighted in particular the LIFE program because this is really where now we are channeling the funding for market uptake activities supporting energy efficient buildings. And I will come back to this in a moment. So Build Up Skills, indeed, yes, an initiative that was jointly set up by the Commission and implemented by our agency. The key objective behind it was to support the upskilling of building professionals along the value chain. So we've done this through open calls, different type of projects. At the very beginning, a lot of national projects. Then we expanded to transnational projects, mostly under Horizon 2020. And currently, this is now being funded under the LIFE Clean Energy Transition sub-program. So what have been the key outputs so far? If we look at this graph, well, this really aims to capture some of these outputs. The development of national skills strategies was clearly one of the focus, especially at the very beginning. And now we are in a process of funding an update of these strategies. So we have had projects that really put efforts in gathering all the key stakeholders in so-called national qualification platforms, then mapping the status quo of skills gaps and needs, and then developing a roadmap of actions to remedy the skills gaps. We have also supported the development of qualification and training schemes on different areas, whether it's renovation, nearly zero energy buildings, heat pumps, for example. This has been done having in mind also the need to support some sort of mutual recognition of skills and qualifications. So very often the work done relies on units of learning outcomes to ensure some sort of comparability. Micro-credentials are also very much considered to try and break the knowledge in smaller chunks that may be easier to digest and make also the upskilling pathway more flexible and more agile for professionals. We definitely had many projects looking into ways to make the training more innovative and more attractive, whether it's through on-site training or e-learning or blended approaches. I will give a few examples later on. Obviously, the training of professionals and the training of trainers is in the focus, although we are not aiming directly at running actual training schemes. So this initiative is more about piloting innovative approaches and creating a toolbox that can then be scaled up by stakeholders or by national organizations. More lately, we have also encouraged applicants to look at boosting the recognition and the demand for skills. So not only looking at the supply of skills, which obviously is very important, but at the same time making sure that the skilled professionals are also visible on the market. So there we had, for example, campaigns towards homeowners on the importance of skilled professionals, also skills passports or registries of skilled professionals were piloted in a few projects, and as well piloting the link between skills requirements and procurement processes was something that was also looked at. So all in all, we have funded so far about 90 projects, and you can see that the support was more than 54 million euro so far. So quite a big pipeline of projects. In the next slide, I wanted just to very briefly highlight some of the solutions that were developed and tested. I think we'll hear more about this later on and also in the discussion. Obviously, digital tools have been considered quite closely because we know what one of the main challenges very often is the lack of time from professionals to enroll in any form of upskilling activity. So the Build Up Skills Advisor app, for example, which is available online for download and which has been developed by successive projects. It provides really short upskilling opportunities on different thematic areas. For example, learning from construction errors, which can be very interesting, a form of gamified approach, if you like. So this is one example. On the other end of the spectrum, we also had projects looking into on-site training, and as you can see on the picture, to bring a container directly at the construction site, which is fitted like a home to be renovated, and basically the workers can just come in and have a look and be upskilled maybe for a few hours. So it's very agile, can be introduced seamlessly during the working day. So it was the BIMplement project notably, and they used it even coupled with BIM, so building information modeling models, also for blue collar workers, which was quite interesting. So you can find more information on the website. Another example, which is relates to the campaigns I mentioned earlier, in the INZEB Roadshow project, the team was very brave, and they organized INZEB weeks in 5 countries in Central Europe to demonstrate the benefits of energy efficient buildings and convince the homeowners about the benefit to rely on skilled professionals for renovation and on the best quality materials for the works. So this was also very I believe, very successful, and maybe Dragomir will also come back on this later on. And maybe a final example which relates to circular construction. In the Bus Go Circular project, the team is developing, as we speak, a circular construction qualification framework, which, as I said, will help to map out the skills and to pave the way for some mutual recognition between the countries involved in the project. If you would like to hear about more project stories, this publication has been recently updated, and I think it's quite rich. You see examples mostly from Horizon 2020 projects that we funded through Build Up Skills, with interviews from the coordinators. So please have a look if you are interested. So now moving on and also looking a bit at the recent developments and also the funding opportunities. As I said earlier, the Live Clean Energy Transition Program is now the home to the market uptake activities that we used to fund under Horizon 2020. So you may know LIFE from the nature and biodiversity, the circular economy, and the climate change mitigation and adaptation. But it also has a pillar on the clean energy transition, which supports projects into 5 intervention areas that you can see listed here. So it's first of all to actually build the policy framework for the clean energy transition. Secondly, to ensure the technologies, the services, the business models, and the skills needed for this transition. Thirdly, to look at how to leverage private finance through financial engineering. Fourthly, supporting the local and regional investment projects. And last but not least, to involve citizens in this clean energy transition. So we do support projects in all these thematic areas. I won't have time to present, of course, all of these areas, but I wanted to flag that currently we are funding an update of the national roadmaps that were established more than 10 years ago on skills. You can see here the list of countries, and by clicking on the link, you will find more information about each of these projects. Very soon we should have the updated status quo analysis with an estimate of the skills needs and gaps in each of these countries. And towards the end of the year, a first draft of the national roadmaps with measures to 2030. Importantly, this consortia will work to have the national roadmaps endorsed by key national stakeholders. About funding, we have currently a call open with the deadline on the 16th of November, with a bit more than 100 million euro available, 13 funding topics open. And just to flag that under Live CET, we do have a co-funding rate of 95%. Obviously, I won't have time to present all these topics, but you can find more information here on this link on the funding and tender portal. But just to highlight that we have, of course, a topic on skills, which is quite broad because, as you can see, there are 5 thematic areas that applicants can choose to address. They have to select one out of the 5. Namely the skills supporting the energy performance of buildings directive, the skills for the decarbonization of the building stock, the skills for small-scale renewables and system integration, innovative on-site training methods, yes, which was mentioned earlier, and the skills for integrated home renovation services managers, basically. So if you're interested, please go on the funding and tenders portal, and you can see the details about this topic and all the other topics under this call. And just to finish by mentioning that at the moment, Build Up Skills is hosted on the Build Up portal. So if you'd like also more information about what we are doing, then please go directly on BuildUp under this link. I think I stop here, and of course, I'm available for any question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amandine. I assume that you will stay with us also for the second session on the panel discussion, so we can discuss further on what you presented. So far, I cannot see a question. Of course, one slide of yours triggered me to ask a question, but I'm sure that the answer is posted at the construction skills report that you mentioned. But in any case, I want to ask it. You said that already 90 projects have been funded, already 54 million of euros have been allocated since 2011, if I'm not mistaken. So I wanted to ask, is SINEA and the previous agencies to SINEA are happy with the so far results and the projects that they have funded? And if we have, I don't know, an indication of the impact, what all of these projects have done to shape or to reshape the environment that we are discussing at the moment. I don't know if the answer is at the publication, but I would like to say something from your side as well.
No, it's a very good question, obviously. I mean, in the publication, you will definitely find some hints, because there you really see how these projects have impacted the market, whether nationally or transnationally. It's difficult to give just one KPI for this initiative, because, as I said, we are not looking at actually training people. So the projects have to pilot the training, and they do involve some workers in those pilots. And altogether, they have trained more than 20,000 people, which is I think quite substantial in terms of speaking about pilot phase. But of course, this is not the main aim of this project, to train people. So I think the impact is more, as I said, in the kind of toolbox that these projects have been developing, whether on the training side, on the qualification mechanisms, on the recognition tools. I tried to present some of them. I mean, obviously, 10 minutes is difficult to go more in depth. But I think the main output is really this one. And there are now really some solutions that can be just replicated and scaled up nationally. So yeah, I think we try to pass the message that through this initiative, we have piloted some innovative approaches, sometimes risky or a bit special. And now there's a corpus, there's a toolbox that is available.
Thank you, Amandine. Stay with us for more questions at the second part of this session. At the same time, Pär has posted one more link on the roadmaps in Sweden. So for the people following this session today, apart from the links that Amandine shared with us, you can find one more from Sweden, and it is good to have the knowledge what member states are doing and what other countries are doing on this topic. So again, thank you, Amandine. And I'm now moving forward to the last presentation of the first part of this webinar. And I want to give the floor to Dragomir Janev, Executive Director of NFEC. Dragomir will present us the Bulgarian build-up skills road mapping. It's good to see what one of the member states is doing on that. And yeah, Dragomir, the floor is yours. I cannot hear you, Dragomir. I don't know if this is only by me or by the others.
No sound.
Something happened. Dragomir, can you hear us? Can you hear me? Am I the only one facing this problem? Can someone from the organizers confirm that you can hear or cannot hear?
We don't hear.
No, I can't hear it either. No,
Okay.
no sound.
Can you talk now, Dragomir?
No, we don't hear you.
You have some headphones, maybe?
He will be back in a minute, so let's give him some time to re-enter. Probably this way the problem will be fixed. In the meantime, I'm inviting the people following this session to post questions. Don't be shy. This is, an event to answer questions, to interact between others. We have experts here that they are sharing their experiences, best practices, insight. So it's good to take advantage of them. Okay, while waiting for Dragomir, I see that we have a question for Amandine. Amandine, are you still here with us?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so the question for you is, what is the split in the financial support between the building envelope and the technical building systems? If you have an answer to this question?
No, I'm afraid we don't. I mean, I'm not sure how to interpret the question. If it's can we retrieve the share of projects that focused more on the envelope and more on those on technical systems? No, we don't have this, I'm afraid.
Okay. But in any case, I assume that, even though, yes, I understand the question, a more holistic, let's say, approach is needed when we're talking about skills. But definitely, yes, the differentiation between the envelope part and the technical building systems, yes, including also the smart things and the electromechanical things. Yeah, it's good to know. In any case, we do not have an answer, but thank you for the question.
I would say most projects worked. I mean, on both aspects. To be clear. Yeah.
In parallel, you mean? In parallel?
Yes, definitely.
Great. I don't know if we have Dragomir with us. Dragomir, are you here? No. Let's wait a couple of seconds yet, because I'm sure that Dragomir is doing his best to rejoin and to fix the technical issue with his audio. Okay, let me ask one more question to Amandine, just to close the loop. So, Amandine, from the perspective of CINEA, what is, the most favorable, let's say, having projects that are working on at a national level, or projects that they actually promote the collaboration between countries that they have similar contexts, similar demands, similar challenges? What is the most preferable, let's say, in terms of project? Yeah, that's the question.
Well, yeah, we actually have funded both types. At the start, only national ones. We had the feeling that this was needed to set the stage somehow, because, yeah, as you said, each country has its specificities, and especially when you're looking at setting a national strategy, or really to look into the needs, then a national approach is really required. That was under Intelligent Energy Europe. So when we started about 10 years ago, under Horizon, we decided to allow also for transnational projects, and that proved to be very useful as well, because countries could learn from each other, trying to address common issues and common challenges. So we also saw the benefit of, for example, having different countries working on setting up a skills passport, for example.
Yes.
Now we are coming back to the national approach with the update of the roadmaps, because this makes sense. But in the future, we'll be open to both type of applications, and this allows me to mention that in the topic that I presented earlier, that is open now until November, we welcome both national and transnational applications. So,
But in terms of impact, do you have, I don't know, something like a statistic that at the national level projects are more impactful, or the transnational ones? I mean, in terms of results, in terms of sustainability, in terms of the exploitation paths and or exploitation opportunities, are there any data or statistical data proving that the one or the other option is better or not? Do you have something like that?
I wouldn't say one type is better. I think the national ones are more targeted, obviously, so they are more focused on their actual immediate needs. But the European ones, they will tend to lift some barriers that are common to several countries, which is also very good. So I think it really depends. Yeah, what is the aim? Again, for the strategies, yes, the national approach really makes sense because there are too many specificities. But when it comes to for example, looking at innovative ways to train people, then it's also good to have this mutual learning. So I would really refrain from saying that one type is better than another type, and that's why we support both under the current call. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So I see that Dragomir is not yet back, has not fixed his problem.
Alice, try to Dragomir, could you hear us or no?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sure.
Yes.
Oh God,
Great.
good. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry really for that. It's sometimes
You gave me time for questions to Amandine. So yes, okay, now Dragomir, we can hear you well. Please proceed with your presentation.
I would like to ask you to move the slides for me because I'm connected by the phone at the moment, and I will try to keep it very short. Just one key message, because we had an excellent presentation of the policy framework. Now we need markets to implement the policies, and I think that's quite visible from the experience that we have under build-up skills since the beginning of the initiative in 2010-11. I'm skipping the usual first slides for that initiative, but you all know that we did roadmaps for the period until 2020, and then we tried to use all the components and the areas, the problematic areas in the roadmaps, to deliver content to improve mostly the supply side, I would say, but we also understood in the process that we have to impact the demand side, and that has been the biggest issue that we are facing in the countries, especially in Central and Eastern Europe, where the market is a little bit slower in the uptake of innovations and higher ambition as regards energy efficiency in buildings. So we started with establishing training centers, which we can see here in this slide. By the way, just mentioning that Ukraine was excellent back there, 2015, 2016. Next slide, please. Then, yeah, even though we had excellent results, we thought the results are not overwhelming, and we decided to get to the market area that was the most interesting one at that time, and now I would say. So we started to deliver, I think, at least European quality or world quality training on retrofitting, energy efficient retrofitting of buildings, and we provided facilities and training materials for the full range of the along the European qualification framework. We expanded the network that we started previously with Italy, Greece, and Croatia, and had excellent support by Ireland, who performed really spectacularly during that period to establishing their internal capacity and help us out in our development here in that region. Next slide, please. And then we finally came to the idea that we really have to stimulate the demand for quality building in order to get the demand for training and education on energy efficiency in buildings, and that without that crucial step, all our efforts to to diversify and make the supply more flexible and more attractive are basically not reaching the target. So we started with obviously alongside other projects that provided the instrumentarium, the concept of INZEB days. Please, next slide. We call it the INZEB Roadshow, and we decided that we are going places, many places, so that the impact is not focused in the capitals and it reaches wider markets and wider range of market actors. Next slide, please. And then we started. Here is basically the gaming approach that Amandine mentioned. It's proved to be very successful. So we replaced on many occasions the typical presentations and classroom formats with actual demonstration of how the different principles of energy efficiency work and what is the difference between different quality components, which was very, very important to attract the audiences. Next slide, please. And as I said, we moved places. In the beginning, I would have to tell you, as you can see from this slide, it was quite a lonely experience. So we started with schools, we started with local communities, but it wasn't easy to convince the people because, honestly speaking, energy training and education in the construction sector is not yet filling the stadiums. And the beginning was even harder than it is today. Next slide, please. So when we established the initial cooperations with the key stakeholders, then we engaged the suppliers of training materials, and the rooms become a little bit more convincing audience appeared. Next slide, please. After having the suppliers on board, we were quite successful in bringing on policymakers. And with policymakers, often the media come. So here we used one of the ENZEB approaches to start Renovate Bulgaria in Europe. It was attended by a key member of the European Parliament who was working on behalf of ENVI on the EPBD file at that time. So we got quite a good visibility. Next slide, please. After having the visibility, the conferences and the exposition became bigger. So getting the politicians and the media enabled us to get better publicity, and basically our latest event, which we just finished last week, had more than 100 media materials, expositions about it. So it started to gain pace. Next slide, please. Then universities were another impact area that we wanted to complete, to cover, and we got that through demonstrating innovation. Here you can see the VR technology, which were quite attractive for the student, but also other type of technological innovations presented to the youth, to the audience that matters the most. Next slide, please. And after we had all that on board, then that was the peak of the development so far this year. We got with our mobile facilities in the biggest conferences and exhibition in the construction sector, not only energy efficiency, but generally. And next slide, please. Probably the one thing that really made a difference, that we were also able to get into the biggest commercial centers and to present all the new demonstration materials, all the new equipment that we have, all the attractive experiences that we were able to suggest to the visitors in the commercial centers, which means that we had basically the exposition, the best exposition to the potential market drivers, the end buyers, which was extremely satisfying. And obviously the biggest award is that these people brought their children. They were engaged in our games, they learned about efficiency and sustainability, and they will bring their message in their homes and to the future, hopefully. Next slide, please. So then we are able, as Alice has asked, what is the result? There are results from the previous projects, but we have to confess that the results are not sufficient to convincingly say that we are making a difference, even though we have about 3,000 people only in Bulgaria trained in energy efficiency. The impact of the qualification system is not sufficient. Next slide, please. And here are the numbers. So given the fact that in Bulgaria there are about 130,000 professionals active in the building sector, we have only managed to train about 20,000 of them in the past 10 years, which doesn't go anywhere near the targets that we have set previously. That means that we are still facing some structural difficulties, and these structural difficulties, if I can put them into one sentence, is the lack of continuity of the policies at the national level. Yeah, maybe you know that in Bulgaria, the ENZEB definition is still not active, is still not operational, which presented a huge problem. So we are trending towards NZEBs, and the NZEB is not there yet. Now we are talking about zero emission buildings and what is the trust level of the construction sector of that new definition and requirements coming into force. That's been a huge problematic issue. That's of course related to the availability of financing, not only for training and education, but also to support energy efficiency in the building sector. And this has been the main answer to the question why we didn't meet the quantitative targets for training and education, even though we are steering up the markets and we are trying to improve the supply. And I guess that's an issue that we can discuss further on in the panel. Next slide, please. The one thing that we learned actually is that even in that kind of not really supportive and beneficial external situation, if we try to get involved ourselves, if we try to get the right mood, and if we try to get the smiles on the people's faces, why we are talking about energy efficiency, results are coming. And even only with communication efforts, even only with promotional efforts, a change happens down there at grassroots level. And if we are strong enough and how should I say, if we continue the efforts with a sufficient quality for a prolonged period of time, the results would come. The next slide just displays the communication channels that we are using that are getting more and more attention. If you just quickly put it on, and with this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and sorry again for the technical problems. Yeah. Hopefully that was a message that was worth it. Thank you.
Yeah, it was worth it, Dragomir. We have a question for you, but since we need to move forward with the panel discussion and the other two presenters, I'm keeping the question for the discussion after the other presentations, if that's okay with you, okay? So,
absolutely.
We have the second part now, the second part of this session, and this is a panel discussion. We have the pleasure to have with us Fernando Sigchos Jiménez. I hope that I'm pronouncing the name properly. He's the the Secretary General of EBC, and we have also Pär Lundström, Senior Skills and Policy Advisor from GCP Europe, EuropeOn. Both panelists will start with a short presentation of 5 minutes maximum to set actually the scene of what we're going to discuss, and then the other presenters, Sylvia, Amandine, Dragomir, will also join the discussion. We have prepared a set of questions, but also some other questions that came out of the presentation so far, and still we are waiting your questions for our panelists in the chat box. So I'm giving the floor now to Fernando to start and set the scene on the clean energy transition for buildings and the role actually of the professional associations and how those can enhance their renovation skills. Fernando?
Yes, good afternoon. Can you see me well? Can you hear me well, first of all?
Yes, we can hear you well. We can see you, and we can see also your presentation.
Amazing, great. So good afternoon, everyone. Indeed, thank you. My name is indeed Fernando Sigchos Jiménez. I'm the Secretary General of EBC. I will try to move the slides myself. So great. A very quick word about who we are. So we are the European Umbrella Association representing National Association of Construction Crafts and SME. We are currently present in 16 European countries with 19 national associations being members, 15 European member states plus Switzerland. We are also part of the employers delegation in the European Sector of Social Dialogue for Construction. Something I'd like to remind everyone is about the importance of SMEs in the construction sector, because as you might know, even though figures are always a tricky point, we know that the construction sector and even the construction ecosystem is mostly composed by SMEs, and even more so in the construction sector, 95%, around 95% are actually micro and small companies. So we're talking companies with less than 5 or 10 people. And this is, let's say, one of the main characteristics of the membership of EBC. So we represent very local, family-oriented be active in the market of the renovation of residential buildings, construction companies. So today we're going to talk about skills. You all know that this year is very, let's say, timely. That all conversations about skills in construction are very timely with this European Year of Skills that has been announced by the European Commission. I won't be very long, but I would like to mention, let's say, a few thoughts that could help the debate later. First of all, it should be the first bullet point, but actually it's the second, is reminding everyone that training and education are the competence of national member states. Why am I mentioning this? Because the discussion we're having is held at the European level, but in reality, we know that the main trigger for any major change regarding training and education in the construction sector lies at the national level. However, the European legislation seems to be taking, let's say, increasing consideration for the situation of skills in construction. Why so? Because we know that considering the environmental ambition that the European Commission has in the context of the European Green Deal, and especially the renovation wave, we need to ensure that we do have the weapons, the tools, the workforce to actually implement any environmental ambition that will be set in any of the legislative vehicles that are actually going to impact the construction sector and the built environment. And so, in that sense, skills is what we call in EBC the reality check for the renovation wave, because we consider that I mean we all have felt the exponential interest in construction, in buildings, and their potential impact in the decarbonization of the European Union. But this, let's say, rapid evolution and this rapid evolution of the interest for the sector comes at a moment where we were already in construction facing let's say, a long-lasting structural challenge regarding skills in construction. You're not without knowing that construction is not the most attractive sector in the European society. Struggles with, yes, a very negative image with, let's say, a male-oriented, heavy task image, and this has been running for years, for decades. And now with this, let's say, shift paradigm into increasingly get a construction sector that is more sustainable, more digital, in addition to the structural challenge of lacking people, lacking skilled people, we are asking those potential talents that would be interested in construction to be, let's say, increasingly skilled in very specific subfields and for very specific trades. So there is a double pressure here that we need to face in order to actually equip ourselves to achieve the renovation wave. But with every challenge comes an opportunity. So yes, this could be the right moment to make use of this need to digitalize and green the construction sector, the construction activities, to change this image. And one of the ways we could do so is to find ways at all levels, local, regional, national, and European level, to better match the offer of the VET centers, vocational training centers, the expectation and needs of construction companies, and especially SMEs and micro companies in construction, and this European environmental ambition. So, in addition to that, another element that is to consider, and I'm going back here more to the societal challenge for construction, is that, yes, we can have political talks. Yes, we could have exchanges between education experts, construction experts, national and European policymakers. But there's also an exercise that we consider is, let's say, all European citizens exercise, in the sense that in most of European member states, vocational training, manual trades, are considered careers or career opportunities of last resort. I'm Belgian myself. In Belgium, for those that are familiar with the educational system in Belgium, let's say technical education, vocational education is for those that fail in every other type of education possible in Belgium. And if we don't make this a societal exercise, we will face a major struggle to attract people, to change the image, to also find new schemes to improve the skill situation in construction and implement. I will close my first statement mentioning something that we're trying to do at the European level to match, let's say, to bridge the gap between vet experts, education experts, and construction representatives. You might have heard about what was a project, but was way more than that, the Construction Blueprint for Skills, because this initiative, even though unfortunately that the initiative was run mostly in the period of COVID, was the first attempt, a major attempt to find a new strategy using, let's say, the potential of energy efficiency, digitalization, and circular economy to provide new, let's say, strategic guidance for the construction sector to update training curricula so that we're better equipped to face what will be the construction sector of the future. This project ended a few months ago. There is a lot of material that I won't detail now, but I invite you to have a look. And then something that was also launched before that we knew skills was going to become a major topic in the European agenda, the Pact for Skills. Pact for Skill in Construction that was launched early in 2022 with the idea to bring a message out that we need more synergies between public and private stakeholders to upskill and reskill at the time at least 25% of the construction industry workforce with the current environmental ambition, as I like to call. We were underestimating the needs that were there, but the pact is there, has the merit to exist, and brings together several stakeholders from public and private fields, but also from the training, education work, and construction representative. Happy to contribute later.
Thank you, Fernando. I'm sure we have a lot to discuss based on your presentation, but it's time to give the floor to Lars Lundström for his short intervention, and then we can continue with the panel discussion with all speakers today. Lars, the floor is yours. Lars is
my cousin, but I'm Pär.
Yeah, I confused you with your cousin. I'm so sorry for that. It's Pär. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry.
We have the same hairstyle, so you're excused. I could actually use Fernando's presentation of the sector because technical installation, both in Sweden and in Europe, is mainly micro companies and SMEs. So we need to find strategies for small companies. And one challenge is also mentioned by Fernando that people working in our sector might be very skilled, highly skilled, but their experience from school wasn't that great. And they're not that keen in writing and reading, especially not EU documents. So finding a strategy, a way to use the whole concept of the European Green Deal, creating a carbon-free economy, needs transformation in all aspects of how we organize work. And in Sweden, it's been actually core business since 2019. So the Confederation of Swedish Enterprise has the global sustainable development goals as tools for their business plans, and that is also true for our member companies. Next slide. I can do myself. No. Yes. And for me, there's a clear link between the previous image, which was sort of rather wide concerning Green Deal and a wider spectrum of political measures. But if you look at the writings in the Necessary Industry Act, it's clearly stated that the technologies that installation companies in Sweden and in Europe work with are the ones that are doing the trick. And even in the construction sector, there's a tendency to focus on building the building rather than finding the right solutions for the technical installation. So both in the construction sector and in society as a whole, we need to work with our images. And my way of doing that, our way of doing that, is described in the next image. Yes, because here we try to describe the different kind of technical systems in the building. Lighting, sensors, ventilation, heating systems, alarms need to work together. They need to be connected to cloud services. So if Tesla has made us think about the car as a laptop with wheels and the steering wheel, we're now entering the age of living in a laptop. And that creates quite a lot of pressure in the whole system, as described by the previous presenters. And I would like especially to stress what my Bulgarian friend said, that the market isn't ready. So if we look at public bodies, if we look at private companies, if we look at individuals, we need to work with the understanding of what is possible with energy efficiency. And just to give you an example that exists in the center of Stockholm, a building constructed by Vice-Chair. They collect rainwater in the roof for the toilets. They use the aquifer under the building for heating and cooling. And there is 15,000 sensors, 15000, 15,000 sensors that enables this company to be active on the flex market. So we're in a situation where the building actually is becoming a part of the energy system. And even if your Swedish isn't that good, I think you can get an idea that these 8 walls surrounding the building is addressing the challenges that we have. We need to electrify industry. We need to electrify mobility. We are transforming society, creating both energy communities and microgrids. So both as an individual and part of a bigger group of people and buildings, we are becoming prosumers. We are both producing and consuming. And we are doing this increasingly with renewable energy. I think that the solar energy market in both Europe and in Sweden has doubled every year the last 7 years. Think of that, doubled every year the last 7 years. That's an exponential change. And obviously both the mindset and legislation and routines is struggling to keep up. And on the right hand side of my image, or maybe the left for you, I don't know, we have the challenges concerning the grid. We need to build a grid that is at least double what it is today, maybe a third, to be able to handle both increased production of electricity, but also increased flexibility. So we are transforming the society, we are transforming the economy. The goal is a fossil-free economy, but it challenges everything, especially the education system. As Fernando mentioned, traditionally construction has been male-dominated. It's been associated with heavy lifting, with environments that aren't that friendly, that nice to be in. I would invite you next time you come to Stockholm to go to Vasakronan at Myntkvinnadsgatan 36. It's one of the most pleasant buildings I've ever been in. So things are happening for real. They are happening now, but we need to do all the things that we have been talking about today. And obviously, since I'm representing the installation sector, both mechanical and electrical, we are at the core of this. So you need us in order to do what you're talking about. Thank you.
Pär, thank you so much. So we have something less than 15 minutes to go for a quick round of a discussion. I see that there are some questions posted for Dragomir at the chat box, but before going to that, I have a question for all of you, and this question actually comes very close to one of the questions that have been asked for Dragomir. So what I want to ask Sylvia, I'm sorry, Amandine, Dragomir, but also Fernando and Pär, is that we have a medium high unemployment rate in many of the member states. So when we're talking about skilling, reskilling, or bringing new skills in the area, what is needed to engage unemployed people in the construction ecosystem? Are there any good examples that you can share from the member states? And I'm also placing here the question for that is posted here for Dragomir, that the construction sector will experience a skills shortage due to the aging of the current workforce. So how you are foreseeing that transition in Bulgaria, and from the Build Up Skills project perspective? I would like first to ask our panelists, Fernando and Pär, on this issue, and then I would like to have also the views from Sylvia, Amandine and Dragomir on this matter. Fernando?
Yes, of course. Best practice to start with would be one in Flanders, here in Belgium, by our member Bohuni, who is collaborating directly with recruitment agencies in order that the recruitment agencies better channel opportunities in construction in their network. That is a very general network. In that sense, now we try to rebrand somehow certain traits in a way to better show, let's say, the room for improvement of the room for personal development. Installation, as it is one key topic today, is not the same it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. So there are many, many new technologies coming. So the idea is to better brand, in broad terms, the trade of installer, that it is in heating installer, that it is an electrician in general. So this is something that we could do, to collaborate with people that are actually on a day-to-day basis in contact with unemployed people. But I would like to mention something else. A few months ago, the European Labour Authority and EURES published a report on the labor surpluses and shortages in Europe. And one of the main findings of that report is that, consider all the unemployed people that are available, and consider all the surpluses in certain sectors that exist, combining all those people and trying to bring them in strategic sectors like construction, it would still not be enough in order to, let's say, equip ourselves with the workforce needed to meet the digital and environmental targets that we are discussing in many, many legislative files. So I think unemployed people are a clear target for us, but we need to go beyond that, because something also that comes from that report is that there is a war for talent that is clear, and construction needs to maybe take a better share in that war for talent, maybe also thinking about getting people from other sectors, something that might be a bit taboo, but that has always been happening. We know in construction, this is something that has been running for ages, that many apprentices that are receiving a lot of training in small construction companies will get offers from larger companies, but also from other sectors that are linking their training to another sector, because they find an added value in how that apprentice has been trained. And this is an issue as well.
Great, Fernando. Yeah, I understand. Yes, the great demand and the very increased demand for workforce, and this is something that member states need to consider on how they can mobilize more people from other sectors as well, but also to somehow show the way to young people that construction is here, construction will be there, so get engaged, because there is room for everyone skilled. Actually, I hope that I delivered your message properly, Fernando. So, Pär?
On me, to meet the challenge that we're right in the middle of, we need to work with the whole ecosystem. the people that are highest in demand right now are the people understanding how different techniques work together. And if you're a really skilled project manager and also have really high IT skills, you're really sought after. And if we are to make this transition, we need to fill that gap. So I'm currently working with the universities. But what is also happening is that in adult education and higher vet, which we have a very good market-driven system in Sweden for, we see this transformation already happening. So we are bringing in people from higher vet and from the adult education. This also opens up for new openings for people that might enter the labor market for the first time. So we are working with the skilled engineers that are able to think about the building and the microgrid as systems, but we are also opening up for career change, and we are opening up for people that might need shorter training courses to mount a solar panel or work with sprinkler technology or whatever. So there are tasks that you can enter the labor market with. But no matter what kind of skill you're talking about or which person you're talking about, we also need to have openings to move on. So we need to have a clear idea of career possibilities. And as Fernando mentioned, we need to attract women in our sector. So we also need to work with our message that we are actually the ones transforming society and building a climate neutral, fossil-free economy. Then you should come to us if that's what you want to do.
Thank you, Pär, and thank you for highlighting also the gender balance in that, or the gender dimension on this topic. I would like also to hear, let's say, the views of Sylvia and Amandine as they represent the European Commission on the topic, and especially when it comes to unemployed people and how they can be attracted to get engaged in the construction ecosystem. I'm leaving last Dragomir because it's the view of a member state. So please, Sylvia, we would like to hear your view, your insights, or your thoughts on this matter. Sylvia, are you with us? Sylvia? Okay, let's proceed to Amandine then.
Yes, maybe I can come in on this. Yeah, just to come back to what Fernando was highlighting. I think we now realize the importance also of reskilling. I think in the first phases of build up skills, we were very much focusing on the actual upskilling of people already in construction. Now we would like to see more projects looking at the reskilling. So when I presented the projects that are currently working on the updated national roadmaps, we have specifically asked that they look into measures to boost the reskilling of people, notably coming from the fossil fuel related sectors and regions. So we hope to see good proposals, good elements coming from these projects on this. And definitely, as well, to make the sector more attractive for young people and women. So this is currently, in the pipeline for these projects.
Great. Yes, I know that there is a great work done for post-lignite areas. I know some examples here in Greece, how they are actually reskilling people working in coal and everything, and how to move forward to more energy-related skills. Yeah, thank you for highlighting this issue, Amandine. Sylvia, are you with us? I see that you are here in the panel. I don't know if you have some problems with your microphone, but in any case, since we are lacking of time, let's go to Dragomir to have also the perspective of a member state, and also to combine the question that has been posted in the chat about how you foresee that transition, especially with the skills shortage due to the aging of the current workforce.
Yep, precisely. Thanks, Alice. It's really the messages have been shared already by the previous speakers. I can probably jump in with some figures. Yes, indeed, on a quantitative term, Bulgaria needs at that moment of time about 50,000 more people involved in the construction sector, with traditional numbers floating around 130,000. So you can see it's a huge increase of quantity that is needed. Again, we need a lot of quality even in those on the labor market at the moment, because our research shows that only 10% of the workers, both blue collar and white collar, has undergone training on everything, not only on energy efficiency. So it coincides also with the numbers that we collected, and it's not enough, just not enough. And then we also have the aging, which is absolutely clear in the statistical data that we have collected about the Bulgarian workforce. So the problems are there and they're proven. How can we overcome them? It's not an easy issue. Obviously, it needs a lot of interinstitutional collaboration, because it's related to the educational policies, also at regional level. It's related to the increased requirements in the financial programs and in the procurement process for skilled workers. But mostly, from our point of view, it is related to the values that we associate to the built environment. That's something that we are missing, because even if we have certain unemployment rates, even if we have programs for upskilling in the core regions, the reputation of the construction sector is still not good enough to attract young people, and not so young people, because it's mostly associated with brick and mortar and with low qualified work, and it is not associated with the things which are right there in the equation. And these are sustainability issues, these are digitalization, this is association of the built environment with prestige and with high quality of life and with high comfort and well-being for your family. So these are the values that are still not existing in the labor market. And this is why I really agree with the statement that one thing that we should know is to do is to provide clear professional career development pathways for the people that are interested, that people that are around the sector, to convince them to stay there and to attract others, including young ones. That's the only way, and that happens only through communication. I will finish with just one fact that appeared from our research. It turns out that many experts state that architects are now going to the IT sector. And it says a lot about how competitive is the labor market and how the public image and reputation of the sector is able to drive attitude of even highly qualified experts. We have to counteract that, and we have to bring the construction sector up there with the IT and whatever other popular professions we have there, and to show that the built environment is an area of high social value and high reputation for the whole society.
Thank you, Dragomir. And also thank you, Pär, for posting at the chat box a reskilling career change example happening in the Swedish adult education. As it is also only shared with the panelists, if you can share that with the attendees as well, or the organizers can do that. One last point from each one of you, even though it was highlighted in all presentations that we heard today, that there is a collaboration between the policymakers, EU-level policymakers, with the EU-level professional association, but also collaboration at national level. Is there something that can be done more in order to achieve the targets that have been set? The floor is open. Yes?
Yeah.
Yes, Pär, please.
I mean, Fernando made a very clear point. You need to understand that when you talk about companies, it's usually 5-10 employees, maybe 25. In policy environments, both in Brussels and in Stockholm, we tend to talk about companies and think about ABB or Volvo or Siemens. Those are the exclusive ones. We need to address the small ones, the micro companies.
Thank you.
May Alice, this is Sylvia Rezici. I could finally join again by phone. Yeah, well, today has not been my lucky IT day, but I just wanted to maybe share one last thought and take away. from today's discussion, and also to thank all the excellent speakers for their interventions. But I really want to emphasize here the shared responsibility on the skills dimension across policy areas, policy fields. Here we are talking about skills for broadly clean energy transition, be it energy efficiency, renewables, smart appliances, and so on. But in that respect, we and you need to work more forcefully with policymakers, with providers of services, most broadly speaking, in the field of employment policy, regional development policy, educational policy. For instance, just a couple of weeks ago, we were having a stakeholder consultation meeting on the heat pump rollout action plan, and one of the observations was that engineers today are trained in silos. So when they go out of the university, before they become operational, they need to be maybe not retrained. That would be too strong of a word, but still they have to undergo a certain additional training. So the really what I'm calling for here is to take out our messages out of the strictly speaking the energy and more broadly climate policy discourse, where they do belong, but to more forcefully put our sectoral focus into other more very relevant policy areas like employment policy. And this goes back to your question on how to involve unemployed people, and very importantly, educational policy, how to make educational providers produce the skill force for today and for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. That was very helpful. I think it's time to wrap up because we are out of time almost. So according to the agenda, Fernando Sigchos Jiménez, the Secretary General of EBC, will share with us just in 1 minute some closing remarks, and then the floor will be on the build-up team that is the organizer of this webinar. From my side, I want to thank you all, Sylvia, Mendin, Dragomir, Fernando, Pär, and of course Andras, who is not here with us, for this fruitful discussion and exchange of thoughts and insights. And I hope to meet again soon to discuss further and to present more achievements. Fernando, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Alice. Just one thought out of the intervention of Sylvia is that indeed with Pär we were talking maybe mostly about blue collars, but in construction the struggle in the skill situation also includes the white collars. It's really a collaborative effort that is required from the whole sector, the whole ecosystem, as we now call it, in order to make this transition, to have the ball rolling in the whole value chain, because otherwise we won't manage as a sector, as an industry, as an ecosystem to deliver on, let's say, the potential that the built environment has for the decarbonization of the European economy and society. One second thought very quickly is that those working in Brussels are familiar with this. We're talking about changing let's say, updating the materials we will use in construction product regulation. We're talking about changing the way we heat buildings and homes. There is the European heat pump action plan that is coming. There is, of course, the EPBD. There are many legislative files that are actually putting pressure on the materials, on the, let's say, the methodologies, and we need then to also have for a bit of coherence and time to adapt, because if SMEs are known for one thing, is that they need time to adapt because human and financial resources are limited. And I would end with these final words. We know now that we need more women. We need more young people to be interested in the sector. We might need more migrants, and migration is always a difficult topic, but we also need them in our sector. And also, we might need to tap into people that are active in other sectors. All in all, there is now a real, let's say, awareness about the need to back us, to equip us with the right amount of people and the right skills in order to implement all the ambition that is needed to make our European continent more sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. I think now the floor is on the build-up organizers.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Fernando, for these final words. And a big thank you to all the speakers and also to the audience for attending today's webinar. Sorry again for these slight technical problems. A reminder that you will be able to find the recording of today's session on the Build Up portal and our YouTube channel in the coming days, together with the presentation slides. We wish you all a very pleasant rest of the week. Thank you and goodbye.